Okay, now I'd like to read the Word of God. Today's Word of God from the Old Testament, Isaiah chapter 50, verse 1 to 11. Actually, this is the whole verse in chapter 50, so we'd like to read the whole thing. So you got the paper on both pages. So we'll start from number 1, number 50, and then at the back page you read on to verse 11. Or you could have your PPT over here. So we'd like to read the Word of God, Isaiah chapter 50, verse 1 to 11. This is what the Lord says. Where if your mother's certificate of divorce, with which I sent her away? Or to which of my creditors did I sell you? Because of your sins, you were sold. Because of your transgressions, your mother was sent away. When I came, why was there no one? When I called, why was there no one to answer? Was my arm too short to deliver you? Do I lack the strength to rescue you? By a mere rebuke, I dry up the sea, I turn rivers into a desert. Their fish rot for lack of water and die of thirst. I clothe the heavens with darkness and make darkness its covering. The sovereign Lord has given me a well-instructed tongue to know the word that sustains the weary. He wakes me morning by morning, wakes my ear to listen like one being instructed. The sovereign Lord has opened my ear. I have not been rebellious. I have not turned away. I offered my back to those who beat me, my cheeks to those who pulled out my veil. I did not hide my face from mocking and spitting. Because of the sovereign Lord helps me, I will not be disgraced. Therefore, I set my face like flint, and I know I will not be put to shame. He who vindicates me is near. He who then will bring charges against me. Let us face each other. Who is my accuser? Let him confront me. It is the sovereign Lord who helps me, who will condemn me. They will all wear out like a garment. The moth will eat them up. Who among you fears the Lord and obeys the word of his servant? Let the one who works in the dark, who has no light, trust in the name of the Lord and rely on their God. But now, all you who light fires and provide yourselves with flaming torches, go, work in the light of your fires and torches you have set ablaze. This is what you shall receive from my hand. You will lie down in torment. This is word of the Lord, and I'd like to share some great things upon those words titled The Servant's Obedience. Actually, yes, we're heading toward the Palm Sunday, and then of course the Passion Week, one of the most important period of time of the year. And actually, we try to follow the traces of Jesus. But as you know it, the real existence of Jesus on the earth was just merely about 33 years, you know it. So he was born precisely about 4 BC, year 4 BC, and then he died on the cross, and then resurrected, and then he ascended to heaven. That was precisely around year 27 AD. So he spent about precisely 33 years on the earth. But well before those times, actually, ever since the fall, the creation of the human being and everything, and there was the fall for the first human being, Adam and Eve. So, ever since the fall, throughout the whole period of the Old Testament, actually, God foretold what is going to send us. That is Messiah. So ever since the fall, God tried to give us the signpost about what is going to happen later to deliver the whole people on the earth. And actually, the one definition is the Messiah. So God foretold about the Messiah throughout the Old Testament. And then God trying to convince people, mainly people of Israel in the Old Testament time, to believe in those sayings of God. So there's actually great deal of passages recalling us about the suffering of the Messiah as well in the books of the Old Testament. So especially book of Isaiah or Jeremiah or Ezekiel. So you could see lots of passages dealing with the existence of Messiah and the suffering and the victory of Messiah. So actually it's been there for some time, for more than thousands of years. And then especially today's passage, the book of Isaiah. Actually, it was written around 700 BC, some about 2,700 years ago. And actually, especially the book of Isaiah deals with lots of passages regarding this person called Messiah. So I think it's quite meaningful for us to have a look at it in detail, because this is right in the middle of the season of Lent. So today's passage as I told you, the whole verses in the chapter 15. And then you could straightforwardly, precisely divide them into 3 sections. As I told you, they got about 11 verses together, and then you could divide it into 3 different sections. It's quite systematic. So the first 3, verse 1 to 3, actually, the speaker of that sentences are God actually. So God talk about himself in verse 1 to 3, and then verse 4 to 9 we focused on the speaker as Christ himself. I'm going to tell you why. Okay, and then the last 2 verses 10 to 11, actually that's the actual voice of the prophet Isaiah himself. Of course, he liked to advise us about how, right? So, verse 1 to 3, the speaker is God. 4 to 9, the speaker is Christ. And 10 to 11, the speaker is the prophet Isaiah. Of course, they're dealing with a little bit of different kind of perspective. But nonetheless, their real focus is one main figure, that is Messiah, that is Jesus Christ. Okay, so we like to have a look at it section by section. So first 3 verses, the speaker is God, and then it's about who's responsible for Israel's suffering at that time. Remember, that was written in about 700 BC, time of Isaiah, and then the kingdom of northern Israel already tearing apart, and so they're no more. But the southern Judah was still there, but they suffered a lot. So that was the situation, and then God is talking about who's responsible for those sufferings of Israel. And then of course God said, it's not because of me, but it's because of the people of Israel. That's the straightforward answer. And then later God gives us the assurance about his own ability. Right? So that's quite interesting. So when you see verse 1, start with kind of a question, and we call it rhetorical question. Okay? So it's like that. Where is your mother's certificate of divorce, with which I sent her away? The certificate of divorce. So we got very somehow professional term over here. So in order to understand this certificate of divorce, we need to have a look at Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 1. So when you see chapter 24, verse 1, it goes like that. This is Moses' law, written by Moses, given by God, of course. And he says, if a man marries a woman, and that woman who becomes displeasing to him because he finds something indecent about her. So there was something wrong with the lady, the housewife. Then the husband writes her a certificate of divorce. So you got this very professional wording here, certificate of divorce, issued by husband to a wife. Okay, indecent wife, these cases, and then that is good enough. Okay, for her, and sends her from his house. So somehow, it's like anti-feminist kind of an idea, but God sets the rule among Israeli people, and if Israeli man trying to divorce with her wife with sufficient reason, actually, indecent action, something displeasing, then he would do it. So when he does that kind of action, must issue a certificate of divorce. It's kind of an official document that will free her from this household, and she could remarry to somebody else. Okay? So the meaning or the intention of this kind of verse is actually for both parties, both husband and wife, because this wife somehow indecent, but she doesn't have any satisfaction, of course, this marriage. That is why maybe she's cheating on somebody else. And if this husband finds that out, then he could freely send her away with this document. By that way, this lady could go somewhere else, could find somebody else to marry him again. That's the kind of a system in the Old Testament. So here we got a certificate of divorce issued by a husband to a wife who is indecent, and then it would free both parties from this agreement of marriage. That's the meaning or purpose of the certificate of divorce. Now let's get back to Isaiah chapter 50 verse 1. God asked, actually, the people of Israel. So here, speaker is God and listener is the people of Israel. And the God said, hey, where is your mother's certificate of divorce? So naturally, you could see that here, the role of husband lies with God. And then the role of wife actually focused on the whole people of Israel. Or you may say, all the people, forefathers of Israeli people back then. So God asked them, hey, where is your mother's certificate of divorce? If I sent her away, like, in Deuteronomy chapter 24 verse 1. The answer is, there is no certificate of divorce. What does it mean? God, husband, doesn't issue that one in this case. That is what God trying to say in this rhetorical question. It's kind of a question for question's sake. Okay? So God said, hey, I didn't issue the certificate of divorce. I didn't send you away. It wasn't me. It was not because of me. Okay, that's what it means. Okay? Now, the second term in middle line, or to which of my creditors did I sell you? And we got a second term, creditor. Okay, creditor. Okay, so what does it mean by creditor? Creditor is somebody who, could ask you to pay back their own money, isn't it? So if God has some creditors, then he would sell his own asset. In the ancient Near East, in the Old Testament times, actually what is the kind of a costume? Now, if any of the men from the family couldn't pay back his own debt to somebody else, he must sell his own assets, or he must sell his own family as a slave. Okay, by that way, he could pay his debt back. That's the system in the Old Testament time. So God is asking to people of Israel, hey, did I owe to somebody? And answer is for sure. God said, no. I didn't owe anything to anybody, so I didn't sell you for my debt. It wasn't because of me. Again. So, you got the same idea. God didn't issue the certificate of divorce to the people of Israel. God didn't sell them for his own debt. Otherwise, then, why all those, confusions or destructions in the Israeli nation happen? It's because of your own sins. That's how God trying to point out. So it's not because of me, it's because of you. And you are punished, all because of you. That's how God trying to say to them. So because of your sins, you are sold. Because of your transgressions, your mother was sent away. So I think this is very logical kind of question, rhetorical question. And then God says it wasn't him who betrayed or who sold or who actually sent people of Israel away. It's all because of the people of Israel themselves. That's what God trying to say. Okay? So, if this is the end, then this God is kind of merciless God, isn't it? God full of anger. Now, our God is not like that. So that is why in verse 2, we could see the effort done by God so far. So far this Isaiah's time. God said, hey, when I came, why was there no one? Again, rhetorical question, remember? So, and then second question, when I called, why was there no one to answer? What does it mean when God came to this world? Through whom? Through the words of the prophet. Okay? So God sent lots of prophets in the Old Testament time, one by one, again and again, isn't it? And then God said, hey, when I sent them with my words, there was no one, and there's no one to answer. Okay? So the answer actually here got the same thing. God tried his very best to turn those people of Israel to God one more time. Again. But God said there was no one and no one to answer. Okay? And then again, another rhetorical question. God said, hey, was my arm too short to deliver you? Of course the answer is no, isn't it? His arm is long or big enough to deliver all the people in Israel. Yet, people of Israel didn't depend on him, didn't believe in him. That's what it means. Okay? So those rhetorical questions, again, trying to put the responsibilities of Israeli people. Hey, you didn't listen to me, you didn't answer me, and you didn't believe in me, you didn't rely on me. Okay? And then God goes on, with himself. Do I lack the strength to rescue you? Which means, yes, isn't it? So God has much, power to rescue all of us. And then God gives us the example. By a mere rebuke, I dry up the sea. Here, the impression lies on with God delivering Israeli people from Red Sea. Isn't it? So that's what it means. Okay? So God just did a mere rebuke on the sea and then it dried up the sea. And I turned rivers into a desert. That's what God did. And the fish rot for lack of water and die of thirst. Here, the second part actually reflects on the one of 10 plagues. God cursed Egyptian people with 10 disasters, and one of them was like that. So, God trying to give us the evidence and then saying, I'm powerful enough and I have much strength to deliver you, but it's you who didn't listen to me, who didn't answer me, who didn't respond to me. So that is why, in 7th century BC, they got those situations. They got all the way downhill in their national history. Okay, that's what God trying to talk to them. Okay, so on that basis, when you see verse 3, we got the kind of an final words from God. God said, I clothe the heavens with darkness and make sackcloth is covering. What does it refer to? Actually, it refers to the doom days for the nation of Israel. How do we know it? God clothed the heavens with darkness. It's all dark, and then makes sackcloth. God covered the heavens or the darkness with sackcloth. Here, sackcloth is what? The rough material, it. It's very irritating to your skin. And then normally in the Old Testament time, people warn them when they repent themselves, when they're sad, when they mourn about something, when somebody has died. It's like in Korean people, we are wearing something pale, something called pale. Same thing. So sackcloth is kind of that mourning cloth. So the heaven mourned. Heaven itself mourned. Why? Because of God's acts of judgment. So harsh. And then heaven cried out. That's what it means. Okay, so verse 1 to 3 tells us that God is not, doesn't have any responsibility over the fall of Israel, but it's all because of the people of Israel. Yet it talks about God's, great ability and what God could do if you turn to God to listen to Him and to depend upon Him. Okay, so that's on God's side. God speaks about Himself through 1 to 3. Now, through 4 to 9, we got very special section. Start with expression called the Sovereign Lord. The expression called the Sovereign Lord always refers to the Messiah. Okay, Messianic ideas they're talking about, right? So that's what we call it, especially in the book of Isaiah, we call it servant song. So this verse 4 to 9 belongs to that one of those servant song in the book of Isaiah. And always they contain this expression, the sovereign Lord. Okay? So actually you can find 4 different servant songs in the book of Isaiah. Book of Isaiah got 66 chapters, and then they got about 4 sections of a servant song, and these verse 4 to 9 belongs to the third servant song. So these servant song always talks about Messiah. Of course, it refers to Jesus Christ. Okay, so it's still kind of a typical future. The sovereign Lord is start with, right? So this servant song says the sovereign Lord. So here we got a speaker called me. Okay, has given me, isn't it? So actually there's 2 different kind of interpretation. Some theologians say that me refers to Isaiah himself. Well, nonetheless, that makes sense. But mostly, the majority of the theologians, after careful study over this passage, could those me refer to Jesus Christ himself, the Messiah himself. Okay, so that is why the speaker of those verses 4 to 9 actually is Messiah himself. Okay, that's what you need to know. That is why we call it the servant song. The servant in a capital S always refers to Jesus Christ because he is the greatest servant of God. Of course, we are all servants of God, but Jesus Christ is the greatest, and then he takes the great kind of position among those servants. Okay, so in those servant songs, especially the first 2 verses, verse 4 to 5, we could see what did God do to Christ. Okay, this Messiah, and here God has given the Messiah well-instructed tongues. So well-instructed tongues actually is kind of a training. God trained this Messiah. Okay? What does it mean? When the master trained his pupil, this pupil must have lots of knowledge through his master. Now, who's the ultimate student in this very special school? Messiah, Jesus Christ. That is why while he was here on the earth, he could teach us with various things in depth as taught by God. You could find the evidences in the 4 Gospels, isn't it? In the New Testament, right? So, God has given this Messiah a well-instructed tongue, and then with that tongue, what could he do? To know the word that sustains the weary. So that is why while he was here, Jesus trying to comfort people with his own words of wisdom given by God. And then of course God wakens the Messiah morning by morning. So while he was here, God was with him every now and then God wakens his ear to listen like one being instructed. That is why Jesus is the kind of a complete form, complete messenger of God while he was here on the earth, right? So, he got very special ear to listen. So when you see the first part, what about the people of Israel? Let's get back to verse 2. The very first part, verse 2, can you turn to verse 2? Here, when I call, why was there no one to answer? No one to listen to. Okay, in sharp comparison with this attitude of Israeli people, okay, let's get to verse 4. Look at verse 4 here. He got certain ear to listen, like one being instructed. So that is why Jesus is the focal point, because all the attempts of God to persuade Israeli people in the Old Testament has gone in vain. Doesn't have any effect on them. So that is why God decided to send Jesus Christ on the earth, and then trying to turn everything around dramatically. Okay, so when you see verse 5, we got more detailed idea. So the sovereign Lord had opened Messiah's ears, and this Messiah, while he was here, he hasn't been rebellious, or he hasn't turned away. How do you know? The later part of Jesus' public ministry on the earth, he was in agony. He suffered a lot, and then with his physical body, he was exhausted. So the prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane, he tried to ask God, God, please, if you could remove this cup, please, but not by my will, but by your will. So that's what it means. So this Jesus hasn't been rebellious or hasn't turned away, because God gave him the ears to listen. Okay, that's what they mean. So with those instructions of God, then what did Jesus do? We could see what did he do in verse 6. When you see verse 6, here Jesus says that I offered my back to those who beat me, and then my cheeks to those who pulled out my beard, and then I did not hide my face from mocking and spitting. Now, automatically, what can you think of? This is the exact scene of Jesus' suffering on the way to Mount of Calvary, isn't it? So that exactly refers to that instant. Of course, fortunately, if you see the movie Ben-Hur yesterday, you could see a glimpse of it, great glimpse of his suffering, carrying the cross up on a hill. Along the way, his back was beaten by the lashes, and then his cheeks, people trying to stretch out and pulled out his beard. And then, people just mocking and spitting over his face itself. So it's like, when you beat on your back in Jesus' time, it was like, the treaty. You treat it like a criminal. The real criminal, of course, gotta, beat on his back, right? Now, if somebody, pull your beard on your cheeks, and it's kind of a great sign of disrespect. Because, same thing in Joseon period in Korea. If you have your beard, trying to get some beard over here. So, if somebody pulled your beard out, it was total disgrace, total disrespect, isn't it? And you may get angry, love, isn't it? So you may, practice with that later on. Anyway, that's what had happened to Jesus. And then, when somebody's spitting on you, you may think about it. Somebody spit on you without no reason. It was great insult. So, ill treatment, criminal treatment, or the disrespect and insulting. Jesus injured everything, every disrespectful aspect. while he was on his way to Calvary. Right? So that's what it happened. So actually, because God instructed him, Jesus injured himself. And then over those humiliations, still he's gone through, and he didn't react strongly, isn't it? We know that he injured them all. And that's the nature of his suffering. About 2 weeks in time, we're going to commemorate the Holy Week, the Passion Week. Why do we call it Holy or Passion Week? Because Jesus done those things. Because of whom? Because of us, isn't it? Because this Jesus is sinless person. This is God, isn't it? God descended to earth for us. So he doesn't deserve anything like this. But he, just treated like that, and he endured himself, and then he achieved the ultimate victory later on. So that is why actually we call him the Messiah. Okay, so these things all from God, according to God, and then here. So then the later part, through 7 to 9, how could this Messiah could endure all those things, could go on through all those things? Okay, we will see the origin of his strength. Here you see verse 7. The sovereign Lord, remember again, sovereign Lord, helps him. Very simple. How did he do that? How did he go through all those, turmoil of his life? Because he could do it because sovereign Lord helped him. And then, he was sure that he will not be disgraced. So that is why he has set his face, Jesus' face like flint. And then he knew that he won't be, put himself to shame. So he was so sure about himself. And then, set his face like flint because he was so sure. He was so confident about, what would these things lead through. And he knew it. And all because of, God's helping hand. And then just take it. Alright? So, because of God's help, verse 8, when you see it here, he who vindicates me is near. Jesus knew that. So then will bring charges against me. No one. And then that is why Jesus said, let us face with each other. Who is my accuser? Come on. And then let him confront me. Because I'm so confident about myself. I'm sinless. And then I'll confront you. I know that, where would be my destination after all this. I know that where would be your destination after all this. So it goes on with verse 9. It is the sovereign Lord, one more time, who helps me. So again and again, here Messiah was so sure about the help of the sovereign Lord. So no one could condemn the Messiah. Why? In the end, after all, they will all wear out like a garment, and moth will eat them up. The garment itself, even today's most progress kind of system of those manufacturing the garment, still it worns out as the years go by, isn't it? If you could check up your 10-year-old or 15-year-old garment at home, it was kind of worn out, isn't it, by themselves. So actually all human beings, all the accusers of their Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago, they're all worn out. But Jesus said, hey, I will be victorious. Why? Because the sovereign Lord helped me. That's what it means here. Okay, so this second part, because of this second part, Book of Isaiah got great servanthood over this Messiah. And then it dramatically shows us that the role of Messiah and what would happen. Remember, this was written precisely 700 years before Jesus Christ. So that is why now we got this kind of interpretation. When people read this through after Jesus' suffering and resurrection, the first Christians of the early church, and then they totally agreed with what the prophet Isaiah said. through this 700 years ago was about this Jesus Christ. That's why they get this kind of conviction. That's why they don't care about their own life. They devote their life to God in the early churches. Why? They were so sure about, oh, those 700-year-old document talks about it, and now it's realized. So we look ahead. Even though, all the persecutors of the first church, first century, could kill them, and they know that they possess the eternity. So they were so sure about life after death. That's why they don't care about it. And they, Stephen, the first martyr, and all those 12 disciples of Jesus Christ, and they all devote their life. And they eagerly actually kill themselves on the cross, some of them, or some of them by beating up, or some of them by any kind of killing from the government power. Right? So, they're so sure about it because those 700-year-old doctrine is a strong evidence of the real existence and the power of Jesus Christ. That's what you should be sure about it. Now, the last two verses, actually, finally, we got the own word from Isaiah. And actually, Isaiah trying to make sharp comparison between two different groups of people. So one verse each. So when you see verse 10, we got one group of people Isaiah talks about. So who among you fears the Lord and obeys the word of his servant? Who would fear the Lord and obey the word of God? And let the one who walks in the dark, who has no light, and trust in the name of the Lord, and rely on their God. So, we got four aspects. Somehow, they are nearly similar with each other. Fear God, and then obeys the word of God, and trust in the name of God, and rely on God. These are four aspects of all the believers in the world. Okay? So, Isaiah talks about, one group, one of course positive group. And this group could fear God and could obey the word of God and then could trust in the name of God and could rely on God. Okay? Of course, we all wish to be like being group, isn't it? Now, what's the very typical strength of this group, the people in this group is that they have no light, and they know it. That is why they try to depend on God. So, what does it mean? Whenever you see this world itself, or whenever you see some kind of solution from this world, sorry, but there is no ultimate solution in this world. Because this world is so corrupted. So, any of the philosophy or any of the theory couldn't save us ultimately. That's what it means. That is why we must admit that we are in the dark. This world is in total darkness, spiritually especially. And then we have no light. We have no solution by ourselves. That is why we need to turn to God to solve our problem. You know what I mean? So that's what they mean. So those group of people, so the very nature of them is fear. We need to fear God because we couldn't reach out to Him and we couldn't figure out who He is exactly. That is why we like to rely on Him. Why? Because we have to admit that we wouldn't solve the problem in this world. You know it. The environmental problem, or the problem with other nations, or the problem with higher later income, or the lower income group, and you wouldn't solve anything else with any of the good theory, good economical theory or scientific theory, wouldn't solve any of those problems. We have no light. We are in the dark. Once you admit it, then you know that you need to turn to God. That's one group of people. Okay, of course, these are the blessed group of people. Now, what about on the other side, in verse 11? The people exactly in opposite. Now, you could see very interesting description by Isaiah. Isaiah said, "All you who light fire and provide yourself with flaming torches." Now, this group of people think that they got the fire, they got the light, and they think they got the flaming torches by themselves. Think about all those people who doesn't believe in God but believe in something else. Some kind of philosophy, some kind of ism, or some kind of economical or scientific solution if they believe in people. Okay? So God indicates all those people, and God said, okay, go, walk in the light of your fires and of the torches you have set ablaze. Go ahead. What does it mean? Because God gives them this prediction, this ending. Hey, this is what you shall receive from God's hand. And then what? Very simple. You will lie down in torment. Your trials, your technological advance, your scientific discoveries would find you and put you in great torment in the end. That's what it means. So that's quite opposite from verse 10, isn't it? So these people, what's the very typical symptom of those people? They try to depend upon their own knowledge, their own intelligence, their own solution. All the worldly ideas they try to depend upon. And they thought that could solve their problem in their lives. But God said, no, you will lie down in torment. So what's the kind of solution given by God? God, very simple. Hey, you need to admit me. You need to see me. You need to fear me. And you need to rely on me. Then I will care of the rest. Very simple. So 10 and 11, we got two groups of people. One who fear God. The other one who find themselves with some kind of solution by themselves. And then the end result, if you fear God, you could see the eternity. But if you depend upon yourself with your own fires and discoveries, you will lie down in torment. Of course, Isaiah trying to urge us to choose the first one, isn't it? We must fear God. So that's the kind of a natural conclusion of this verse 10 of this chapter 50 actually. So it's like that. It has declaration of God, and then the role of Jesus Christ the Messiah, and then our response in the end. Which side should we belong to? One group who fears God, or the other group who find themselves with their own solution? Which way do we belong to? We must decide by ourselves. So I'd like to sum it up. Today's passage is kind of well-constructed passage, and to show Christ's works of salvation. That's why it's quite appropriate in this season of Lent. We need to see what Jesus has done for us, and then you could get this kind of step-by-step instruction by Isaiah. So we must think of God, and we must think about Jesus Christ, of course, and we must think about ourselves, and actually we must think about the servant, the supreme servant's ultimate obedience. Of course, there was the action of salvation finished by Jesus Christ. We must think about it. And we need to obey ourselves to God. We need to humble ourselves in front of God, like Jesus obeyed himself, isn't it? So the servant's obedience should be ours. We are a servant too. We must show our obedience to God. That's what God wants to see. That's why God gave us this Isaiah chapter 50. And that's what God wants us to understand. So please, I urge you to meditate on those chapters, for upcoming weeks, and trying to decide yourself which group of people you belong to. One group who fear God, the other group who try to believe and find the solution all by ourselves. Which group you want to belong to. And it's totally up to you, but I think God's blessing is on those people who fear God. So let's be in that group. Okay? Alright, I'd like to offer a little prayer. Let's pray together. Dear Almighty Father, please help us to concentrate on the servant's obedience. And please let that be us. Let that be me. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.